Frankie here from Adilla Colab in Double Bay. Today we're here with Laura. We're doing a bit of a colour change on her today, but we're going to keep it something really wearable, so we're going to keep in her natural root shadow. Laura has some existing balayage through her ends, but hasn't had her hair coloured in a little while. What we want to do today is do our own sort of twist on the Blorange trend. So something that is wearable, it's day to day, it's not, it's not, someone's going to not look at you and be like, oh, it's a really bright colour. So it's a bit more wearable, it's a really peachy sort of coppery tone. So that's what we're going with today. With Laura, what we're going to do is cut her hair. So she's just come in, this is how it dries naturally, this is how it sits. So what we're going to do is just cut it in the natural form that it's in so we can see where it sits, where to take the weight out, and before we wash it. So I'm just going to start at the front. Take off some of the length, but mostly work on the weight because we like the length, we just want it to sit nice and beautiful. So today with Laura, what we're going to do is apply some balayage. Balayage is a technique that we hear a lot with hair and hair colour. It's very different to a technique called ombre, so a lot of clients sort of get that mixed up. Ombre is something that sort of means a dark to light or a transition of colour, whereas balayage is a French term which means sweeping, and that's the way you apply the colour to the hair. With Laura today, we're not going to do balayage to the roots, we're going to do it more from a mid-length to ends. The reason we do that is because we want to keep her natural root area as it is quite dark, and we quite like that tone. And then we'll lighten up the ends so that when we do apply the peachy sort of Blorange colour, it will really pick up on those ends and be a lot brighter. So the reason that we use the V technique is because when we are sectioning the hair, when the sun lightens your hair, it naturally goes darker to lighter. So the heavier, sort of thicker area is a bit darker and the ends are a bit lighter. So we use the balayage technique to sort of mimic what that does. So we don't want to add too much lightness through the root area and areas that would be naturally dark, and then we'll pick up areas where the sun would naturally lighten and really lighten those through. So that's why we sort of use the V technique, and also it stops us from getting a line of colour and it just blends seamlessly through. Use a balayage board or the back of your hand really, and then you just use your fingers to really rub that product in and make sure it's evenly distributed and there's no sort of clumps of product. The way you mix your colour will really determine that as well. If you use a whisk or we use a colour mixer, it just makes sure the consistency is nice and creamy. So my ratio for my balayage is about 1 to 3, and because we're not using any heat today or any foil, we can go in with 12 volt. Alright, so now we have processed the balayage, shampooed the hair, dried it off. It's really important with these direct dyes that you have the hair 100% dry, which adds obviously a lot of time to the appointment, but it's the only way to get it really in the hair and really hold. So we're just going through and applying it section by section, starting from the same section we started with our balayage, and combing it through and just making sure the hair is really saturated in the colour. For our Blorange mix today, we've mixed together a few different colours, a bit of an orange, a bit of a coral, and a little bit of like a pinky magenta, and we've just watched it in the bowl because it is a direct dye, so it does sort of give you an idea about what it's going to look like, until we sort of got to a tone that we thought was Blorange to us, which we really loved. And so now we're just applying that, and then we're going to process it for the full 20 minutes. Blorange and we've rinsed the color, and now we're going to blow dry. So I've just put in a little bit of the R&Co High Dive Moisture and Shine Cream, which is really moisturizing on the hair, and all their products are heat protective, which is really important when you've done a direct dye like a Blorange color. We're going to blow dry her hair just in like a soft wave, and then we'll go through with the tongs after just to make sure it lasts. So we're going to use a sort of larger Wise Park round brush to get that beautiful bend. Add a little bit of salt spray. We don't need too much of this because it's quite strong. All right. Okay, so we've finished the blow dry, now we're moving on to the tong. So we've just worked in some of the R&Co Outer Space Flexible Hairspray and then just brushed it through with a Mason Pearson. So I'm just visually going to go through and pick up the areas in which I know I want a little bit more bend. So for Laura's face shape, I'm looking at this and I want to sort of open it up on her eyes here and then really fill in the layers underneath. It's always good to do one of your back sections going a little bit more forward, just to fill in the gap here that's caused by the recession up here. So we all have a little gap in our hair up there. So it's good to do your section just on the top of the ear a little bit more forward, just to fill that in. So whenever you're tonging hair, you always want to make sure that you're tonging it backwards. So you want to go away from the face. So inwards is not very modern and it gives you a really 90s sort of Rachel flick. So always make sure you're going backwards when you're tonging your hair. So to break up the curl, we're just going to use the cool air on the dry and really get our fingers in there and break it up. Maybe add a little bit more spray, brush it out a little bit more and see what we're left with. This is our finished look. We've done the balayage, the blorange, the blow dry, and the tonging. So we're all done. How do you like it?
I love it. I love it.